Hello, everyone, and welcome to the distribution team demo for April 22nd. Today, I will be demoing, showing off the GitLab JH package. I'm just going to, I have a GitLab-EE running here in a VM. I'm just going to show the JH package metadata, install it. Nothing too special there, just exposing people to it maybe for the first time, but then that won't take very long. The majority, I'll actually be focusing on showing off the forked repos that exist for the Omnibus for Jihu and the CNG Images project, and walking through kind of aimed at information sharing for the distribution team, how those repos are set up differently than our own in terms of building and stuff like that. So we'll go ahead and jump in. So I have a GitLab-EE instance running here in my VM, just a test instance. Nothing special about it, just installed by default. I'm going to go ahead and install the JH package. This is the 13.10.3 package, which was the latest released as of yesterday. Obviously not the latest release today, because today is the 22nd release day, but when I was prepping the demo, this is what we had. So I'm going to go ahead and install this. Actually, before I install it, I'm going to just run info on it for everyone here. So of course the package is like actually named differently than our EE or CE package, and has a slightly different, well, a different name in the version as well, but it uses the same version scheme as our other Omnibus packages, simply with -JH instead of -EE. The other thing that you can see is the conflicts and replaces has been set as well, so that this package can go in and be installed over top of a CE or an EE instance. And likewise, having these in this package should also allow the opposite to be true, where if you once you have the JH edition installed, thanks to those properties, if you try to install the EE package, it once again will rather than cause a conflict, it'll just replace the JH package with the EE package, which is what we were going for in terms of allowing users to move from one to the other.
Just for completeness, that's the only difference in that output there. Is that the only difference between the two?
Yeah, well, the description is different. The and that, otherwise, that's the only like metadata difference between the two. For this version, there is one additional difference, is that the maintainer is also, with this latest release, 13.11 that came out today, the maintainer has also been swapped, and that just represents a difference in which company is actually building them. So while we were building the images, the maintainer is us, and that corresponds to our package signing key. And now for 13.11, the package, this maintainer will be will list GitLab CN as maintainer, because it's being built by them and with their package signing key.
Cool. Thanks for the extra context on that.
Yeah, there's at the moment there's no, in terms of Omnibus cookbooks or anything like that, there's no changes to the recipes. There's no changes to the cookbooks. It's just, it is a copy of all the EE files at the moment. All of the changes, all the product changes are on the Rails side and are cosmetic at the moment. Future plan changes are for enhancing support for things like Tencent Cloud and Ali Cloud and stuff like that. So it won't just be cosmetic in the future, but largely for our projects for Omnibus and CNG, it's likely just the build process that differs, and the build package naming and stuff like that.
You said you got this run locally on a VM.
Yeah, this is just a VM I have running on my machine.
Gotcha. I was just curious, like roughly how big it was.
Oh yeah, it's or the package or the VM.
The VM.
Yeah, it's just I have it at like I think 4 gigs of memory and 2 CPU cores. I'm just gonna wait for it to come back up after the restart.
Looks like metrics is responding. It should be coming up now.
Yeah, so the cosmetic difference you can see here is the logo has been changed out to be the GitLab-EE logo. And then functionally, I shouldn't say just cosmetic, but I mean like no core functionality has been changed, but the license code has also been changed. So it actually uses different licensing keys. So a GitLab-EE license uploaded to this doesn't actually activate any of the EE features. You need a Jihu license to activate EE features here in this product. And that's it in terms of differences at the moment. Mostly just a package name and a logo for now as the difference in the actual package. So let's go ahead and jump over to the repos, which is really where the majority of the work has gone in. So here I am in the GitLab-JH Omnibus GitLab repo. So currently this is a mirror of our Omnibus GitLab. As the Jihu team brings up their SaaS and brings up all their services, this will probably swap to be a mirror of their Omnibus GitLab repo. So what will happen is in their SaaS service, they're mirroring our Omnibus. And then here in GitLab, this becomes our mirror of their changes type thing as they do any of their build work in their SaaS. But at the moment, this is the working project. It's publicly viewable, publicly available here. And this is where changes go in. So in terms of the changes, the mirroring mirrors all, of course, it mirrors all protected branches from our Omnibus GitLab, and those none of those branches or any of the code in those branches are changed. So master isn't changed, none of the stable branches are changed. What we did instead was create new branches in this repo for any of the Jihu related stuff, and then we changed some of the project settings to make better use of those branches. So you'll see we have, instead of master, we have a main JH, and that's our default branch. So that's being used instead of master, and so that's just the JH specific changes merged on top of master, and that gets merged semi-regularly. And then everything else is in separate branches and separate tags. So that's one method of the mirroring. And then the other big one is in terms of the CI. So some of these projects, we've kind of done it 2 different ways depending on the need. So in the case of Omnibus, we were still building in dev for the previous release, even of these packages. So what we did is we made a change to the CI YAML for this project to in the none of this stuff has changed, but in the includes, a single line was added that then includes a GitLab YAML, just like we've included specific CI files for our different environments. And this CI YAML, basically, like a big part of what it does is it lists the jobs of our own pipelines that are being skipped because the Jihu package doesn't release all of our packages at this time. They chose a subset to build and release on their side. And then otherwise it sets up specific release jobs to the ones that they're releasing. So this was one method, and this is the whole file here. This is one method, and this was done this way with a change to the main GitLab CI file, because this actually had to run not only in this repo but also in dev at the time. We're no longer running builds in dev, so some of this configuration can change at this point. But over in the CNG images side, where we also do releases, we were doing releases not from dev, we were actually doing releases right from this project in GitLab.com. So we were able to model the CI more like how the Jihu team are likely to model it on their own instances. So once again, you'll see we have the branching is the same. We have the main JH, but rather than make any changes to the CI YAML file, so there's 0 changes to this file. What we've done instead is in the CI/CD settings, we've actually changed the project's location to which CI file it's looking at. So like this syntax of .gitlab CI YAML is just a default for a project. You can actually set it in project settings to a different file completely. So that's what we've done. We've set it to a new file. And you'll see for the initial release, this one actually did the opposite. It included the top level one as the base, and then did any overrides it needed to do. But that allows us in this scenario to ensure that there's never any conflicts in the CI file because there's never any Jihu specific changes to that CI file. So that's how this one was done, being that it was built in here. Going forward, probably there won't be any like include of the top level file. Now that the build systems are completely separate, the Jihu team is building from their own DevOps instance. Probably they will just, as they have different build needs, they'll probably just use, my recommendation is for them to just use the RCI files as examples of how to set up their build systems. And so they will probably instead look like a duplicate, somewhat of a duplicate of ours, but with the things they don't need of ours removed and the things that they need added. And the reason for that is in this current system, changes that we make to our CI files are likely to break or potentially break their build system unnecessarily. And we're hoping to avoid that. So the idea is while a lot of the like the actual build code that's being run should be the same, and we do want that shared and to be when we're building code or when we're making changes, we do want to be thinking about how this is going to work for the Jihu branches as well as like any potential other fork in the future. I don't want us to have to worry about that when it comes to our CI files, because our CI files are complicated enough type thing. So the hope is that our team doesn't have to worry too much about when we're making changes to our CI files to jobs or stuff like that, that we shouldn't feel limited by making sure things are compatible, because the hope is that the Jihu team will just be using their own build CI file. Yeah, and that's basically it. The majority of the changes actually are just the CI file. In Omnibus, we put in a couple, like basically all the changes had to be around anything where we had hard coded that things can only be CE or EE in terms of version checks. Were the only thing that's changed. Most of those changes actually are upstreamed and are not specific to this repo. I'm back in the Omnibus one here. Well, one change that is specific to the repo is in projects. We have in our main repo, we have just these two that represent the two different packages. And in the Jihu repo, we have one more. And like this is the extent of the changes in it. So you'll see, like I mentioned before, that the maintainer has recently changed, but otherwise, like this is it. In terms of differences, almost all other changes in this repo, we can actually jump over and see what they are. So if we jump into our latest stable, we recently did a rebase on this one. So all of the changes we made are pretty recent, I think. It's mostly this stuff here. So we have the rename of the Jihu maintainer, like I mentioned, but basically it's largely just build related changes around opening up the variables for them to be able to specify like their object storage and stuff like that. And I think that's about it. There's not too much magic going on in these repos at this point, other than the CI files themselves are probably the most I wouldn't say hacky, but the most non-standard thing going on in the repos. Everything else, changes that we've needed have been pretty much upstream to be more flexible, like upstream to our own repos, to be more flexible in the idea that there could be more than just two packages. I would say going forward, as a cleanup task for our projects that resurface as part of this is when looking at the differences between having to do this CI file for Omnibus versus CNG. Omnibus, if we jump back into the CI file, you'll notice there's not really content in this file. Like it's just different jobs. There's not really different content. Like there's a few different environment variables, but there's not different content, and that's because we already in Omnibus we already genericized all of our build stuff to run one command and it figures out whether it's CE or EE. So that just meant that those things also, like that code paths were just updated to like figure out if they're CE, EE, or JH, and there was no other work here. In the CNG images, you'll notice that whenever I need to introduce a JH file, that this is actually just a duplicate. All this content is duplicated from our CE and EE one, and that's because in the pre-existing CI file, our CE and our EE content is also duplicated. Like we haven't gone through and deduplicated the work. And by duplicated, I mean like basically it's all the same minus typically like one line of difference of the EE versus CE, and it's usually just like the from images build arg pointing to a specific version is typically the only difference between our CE and EE. So as like a future cleanup to allow the Jihu team to eliminate all of this content, because this shouldn't really have to be like specific. A lot of this stuff shouldn't have to be specific to their stuff. It's just duplication. And to also clean up our duplication, it'd be good to do something similar to what we've done in Omnibus, which is like all this sort of build logic should be not in the CI file itself, but in like library files or build scripts or something like that. In the omnibus, we use rake, and we have them built into rake tasks, for example. So I would say that's that's for us one of the main follow-ups from this at the moment. Did anyone have any questions? This was all, I think this is all I wanted to show, just to introduce everyone to these repos and what was going on.
Yeah, it's impressive that the small number of changes that were needed overall and how targeted they were right into those different places.
Yeah,
Impressive.
we were pretty lucky in that we already had 2 packages, CE and EE. So we already had everything we needed. It was really just a matter of making any place that was specifically only thought that we had 2 package, except the fact that we could have more.
Gotcha. So if we needed to do this one more time, it would be even easier, right?
Yeah.
What do the numbers engineers care about? 1, 2, and many. Yeah. Nice. So my feeling at this point is that the Jihu team is largely decoupled from us from a process perspective, like even beyond our team, I guess I'm thinking.
Yep. Well, yeah, in terms of the stuff that we had done for this release, yeah, that's now been taken over by the Jihu team. It's not, so I was the one making those CI changes initially, but pretty much at this point, all those future improvements, they're, and if they're large enough, they might come in as a feature request for us, but for the most part, it's their team now providing ways to do what they need to us, type thing, and us maybe review them, is kind of where it's at. Other than that, we're just in like a question answering phase, sharing and knowledge sharing with the team over there as they are preparing to bring up. So they've already brought up their build system. So as they continue to tweak their build systems or run into issues with them, but then I think they kind of have that under control at the moment. So the bigger one they're working on is bringing up their actual SaaS GitLab CN. So it's more just answering questions at the moment. But yeah, the actual development work has been taken on by them. We were just accelerating it when it was first starting.
Awesome. Thanks for the status on that as well. That magic sound of the crickets tells me that we're nearing the end of the demo. Great work and great demo, DJ. I think, again, the fact that it was such a light touch to make it happen is very impressive.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining.